Hi everyone, thanks for joining us again. So today is lesson 5, and this will be all about how to create um, conditional actions. Okay, so to set this up, I've got a page, a newly created page, and what I'm going to do is create a survey for a user so we can demonstrate these effects. So the first thing I need to do is I need to add some text fields. So text field, so I'm going to add one of those. Okay, and let's just say for the moment we'll do the usual thing. We'll add some padding. Okay, and this will be the first text box in a survey regarding just a basic survey on your age and your school. Okay, so to do this, what we need to do is hint text. We need some hint text. Enter. Oops. So enter your age. Okay, so that's my hint text. Okay, and then what I might do is I'm going to duplicate this to create a second one, and this time we're going to be asking where you go to school. Now in this case, I'll put in as enter your school. Okay, ... Okay, and then what we want is on top of that well, that'll probably do actually. Okay, and then we need one more when we need a button. So basically what we've got is a little survey quiz, and we'll just add a button. Okay, and we'll add that one. Okay, so we'll get our button. Okay, and for the button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say okay. Wherever the text is. There we go. Okay, and that'll do. Okay. Now, just a couple of things about text fields, which we hadn't talked about so far as we've been doing the videos, is whenever you're getting a user to enter text, what you want to do is you want to qualify that data and make sure the data looks consistent. Because if you're going to reuse the text for other users, so for example, if you're, let's say, saying enter the name of the school, and basically you want to reuse that data, and because you have a list of schools in the background or something like that, what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to make sure that the data, the way it's entered, looks consistent, so that if it gets reused, it looks all right. So one of the things you can do is a thing called capitalization. So capitalization just means whenever someone enters the data, they're going to capitalize the first word, and that just gives a consistent appearance for the data when it comes in. So it's just a little bit of a professional touch. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to click OK. Now, once they click OK in this example, what we want them to do is we want to make sure that the user has actually filled in all of the forms, all of the fields. Okay, so to do that, what we can do is we can put in some conditional actions. Okay, so those conditional actions might be, so what we can do here is once the button is clicked, we can add a conditional action. Okay, and for this, you can have multiple actions or single. Now, in this case, I'm just going to have a single. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is it's going to ask me what my condition is. Now, the condition I want to fulfill is that if they haven't filled in or entered anything for the data, I want to be able to not allow them to proceed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, for the first one, which is the widget state or the value that's been entered, what I can do is I can say is equal to. Now, if I've got a specific value I want to equal, I would set it here, but otherwise I can set not set or empty. Okay, and then I can confirm it. Now, once I do that, then I've got a true and a false set of conditions. So the true conditions will only be or actioned in cases where the user has the conditions are true. So in this case, we're saying is unset or empty. So that means that what we want to do is we're going to tell the user, don't be lazy, fill in the information. Okay, so what we can do is when that happens, so when they haven't filled in the field, we can then send them a message like we have previously, and we can make it an informational one saying, okay, and we might have app update, and we might say something like, please enter your age. Okay, and then dismiss text. Okay, so that's all set up. Fantastic. Now, what we want to do now, though, is that we've obviously got what's happening is true, and then we can go with false. Okay, so false. What we're doing is we're then saying, all right, what is the next step? So if we go back to our sheet for just a moment, what you can see is we want them to enter their age, but we also want to enter, in this example, their school. So to do that, what I'm wanting to do is check whether there's been some data entered here and some data entered here. So if that one has been entered, then we want to check if the second field has been entered. So we can go back to our action flow editor. Whoops, I've got, which was under the button. Okay, and what I can do is that I can say, well, I'm going to add another conditional reaction thing, and the reason I'm showing is that this is a nested conditional action. So what I'm doing is basically saying, well, if that condition is fulfilled, then we check another condition. Okay, so this time what we're going to check is whether the second field has been created. So I'm going to say a single condition. Okay, and this time I'm looking for first value, and I'm looking for the widget state, which is the components on the page. Okay, field, and then I can again do exactly the same thing and say, is it not set? Okay, so if it's set, okay, all right, so again, if they haven't filled it in, we can get them to basically say, well, we want to send them a message to say, please fill in your school. So we can do much the same thing as what we did before. Okay, it's an informational one. And I'm just going to put in app update and please enter your school name. Okay. Okay, and then once we've set that up, then we're basically forcing the user to either enter the information we're after, otherwise they can't proceed within the app. Okay, and then the final thing that we want to do, now in this case, normally if we had a backend set up or a whole heap of widget states, so for example, from previous videos, what we can then do is say, all right, we're going to get that information and we're going to put it into an app state for further use. So for example, we might say, all right, we're going to update our app field. Okay, so from previous videos, I had a counter set up, which we'll just use that for the age to save us setting one up. I'm going to set the value, and the value that I'm going to set, I'll click on the little thing, is I'm going to set whatever the value is that was in that state. Okay. All right. So once we do that, and I also want to set the school name as well, and we've also got an app state there. So this time we'll set this one, and what we need to do is exactly the same thing. We need to set the value, and we need to tell it where we're going to get the value from. So in this case, school name. Okay, and what that does is once they're entered, once the OK button is clicked, all the data's in, we are then converting that information into a state. Okay, so to find that out, and we'll do a couple of, while I'm waiting for the test mode to upload, we'll have a look at some other options of what else we could do. So let's say, for example, in this particular action that we also wanted to make sure that they were 100% sure that, because the data was maybe really important, that they're happy with their entries. Okay, so what we can do is we can add an action. Okay, and this will show you a new type of alert that you haven't seen previously. Okay, and in this one, what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, alert dialog, and we're going to have a confirm dialog. So that basically is very similar to the ones we've used previously, except that we've got a cancel or an OK button or a confirm button. Okay, so if we fill in the information the same way, so have an app update, and it's always a good idea to, whenever you're formatting your messages, to make sure that they are a consistent format. I'm going to put in, are you sure you want to upload the data? Okay, and you can get a yes or a no, okay, with an okay or a cancel. Okay, now we actually shouldn't be doing this, the app update, until after. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move that, so that's, they've got to confirm it before we do that. And then what we need to do is we can add a conditional action, because this is a yes or no. To be able to then act upon the user's response, we need to add a conditional action. Okay, so if they decide to proceed, now I've got this in the wrong place, I'm going to say copy action, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay, and then we no longer need that action. Okay, so now what we have is we have basically the user entering the data, then confirming that they're 100% ready to proceed. If they do, then we supply we upload the app details. If nothing happens, I can either put another action in here, or I can just leave it. Okay. All right. So let's see how it all looks and how it all works when we put it all together. Okay. So we've got our test mode here now. Hopefully it's all uploaded and ready to go. One day it'll come up. There we go. Okay. All right, so we're going across the page we're working on, which is here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to try and do is not enter any data and click OK. And what I should get is, please enter your age. Okay, so okay, fantastic. That's what I would expect to happen. Now if I enter an age, let's say we'll just put 18 in, and then I want to enter the school, but the user doesn't do it. We can test to make sure that's okay. Please enter your school name. Okay, so it doesn't let the user proceed. And then if we put in Cheltenham, okay, and we click OK, it's happy. Are you sure you want to upload the data? And I'm going to say cancel, okay, and then no action should be taken, okay, because nothing's happened, okay. And by the way, you can tell these by search, but what's happening, if you want to double check, is by searching the variables. So you can see here with your testing in your test mode, it actually shows you whether the data has been set. So you can see that counter, we had it as from a previous lesson, we had that set as a default of 0, and we had name not set at all. And you can see that the app state at present is indicates that we haven't actually actioned assigning the two values to these two variables. So now if we assign it, what should happen is these should change to 18 in Cheltenham. Okay? And then you can see what's actually happened. So this debug panel is very useful for being able to see what happens. So basically, that's how you make conditional actions. So give it a go, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Cheers, guys.